Hey everyone. Again, sorry about late episode recording. This was recorded a weekend after Oppenheimer was released, and obviously months before the Oscar nominations came out. So sorry about the time and inconvenience. But other than that, enjoy the rest of the episode. All right, this is Gilbert. It's all about the media podcast. Jesus and I are back together with another good episode. As I mentioned before, so first off, earlier this summer we meant to do an Indiana Jones episode, but due to like unfortunate scheduling for me, I haven't been able to actually see the movie. So I'm gonna have to be one of those. I wouldn't say poor saps, but at least one of those people who have to wait till it's released on Disney Plus. So unfortunately, we won't be getting an Indiana Jones episode sooner, but I was gonna say I'll probably get a chance to watch it when it's like on Disney Plus.
I was gonna say add to that and say, yeah, that's probably a safe bet
Yeah,
based on what I watched when I went to the theater.
yeah. But we did promise an Oppenheimer episode, or we said a Christopher Nolan episode, but I think we both agreed let's just do an entire Oppenheimer episode because I have a lot to say about that film, especially because like if y'all don't know, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. Always have been since I saw The Dark Knight, even before I knew like who Christopher Nolan was. Yeah, it's I would say what you would think this is like his longest film ever, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's close to about 3 hours.
3 hours? Yeah. Before that, I thought probably Interstellar was, but then Oppenheimer beats the cake. And I did the whole Barbenheimer thing. I got held against my will to watch the first film, but I'll give you my 2 cents on Barbie in another time. But this is just like I want to avoid the whole Barbie thing right now. But I will say like I didn't hate the film, but again, when the time comes when I want to talk about the film, I'll talk about it. But yeah, I did the Barbenheimer thing as most Americans did. Yeah, Oppenheimer, I loved it. I would say I loved it more than Barbie, but maybe that's just me being biased because I love any Christopher Nolan flick. But it's an interesting film because you don't just dive deep into. So, just in context, it's about J. Robert Oppenheimer, who created the atomic bomb that was dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima during the Second World War. And it doesn't just talk about like the making of the bomb. I would say the making of the bomb is like 40% of the film because 60% of it, it's about events that happened after the bombing of Japan. If I can remember context wise, it's basically like Oppenheimer in the 50s, I believe, is accused of being a communist. So, like Strauss, it's been a while since I see the film. I tried to watch it again before this podcast, but I just didn't get a chance to. But Strauss, wonderfully played by Robert Downey Jr., if you can agree to that. Yeah, Strauss is like trying to revoke his membership.
I was gonna say I get it. There's gonna be a lot of Marvel fans who are gonna be upset by what I say this, but I mean this is probably RDJ's best performance like ever. Like
Yeah.
if he doesn't win an Oscar for this, I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah, we will talk about like Oscar potential for this film, but Strauss is just trying to revoke like his memberships and all that because like he thinks like Oppenheimer like made all the scientists turn against him, starting with Einstein. And then we'll talk about like what really happened. I don't think that's what it happened in real life, but I like to think maybe that's what it happened because like the conversation between Einstein and Oppenheimer is like I think it's a good way to end the film. You know, this film kind of went to a full 360 almost. Yeah.
If I could tell you my reactions coming out, again, no offense to anybody who went to go view the film. Everyone has opinions and stuff, but since being in depth with the sciences and like always seeing the news every day about what's happening in the world and the natural world, this the ending couldn't have been any, like you said, it could not have been any other better ending. It's just I walked out of this movie feeling really reflective over life, over what we as a society are doing. It's like almost like, to put it lightly, it's like we need to stay the way we are. Like with all this stuff going on, we need to be supportive of countries that are at war with each other. We need to be this and that. We need to understand what angle we support, what angle we're coming from. Because all in all, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what kind of party or political agenda you follow. We as a species, we're going to die if we don't come together. That ending really like opened, like it didn't open my eyes. It just reaffirmed my belief that we're screwed if we don't actually like come together and not kill each other over missiles and all this nuclear warfare.
Yeah. And like, given where we are right now in this day and age, especially here in the US, where we have our own like political battles, it goes to the affirmation that we're all human. We're not born perfect. Nobody is. In case y'all don't know, like, his sister and I are firm believers in Jesus Christ, and we always known that like we're not born perfect. It's not the intention for us. It's just more like we just have to live. We're gonna struggle. That's the purpose of being a human. And yeah, it just really opened my eyes. And aside from Robert Downey Jr.'s great performance, I'll accept if he gets nominated. But again, we'll talk about the Oscar thing in a bit, like towards the end. But Cillian Murphy,
Cillian Murphy, huh?
yeah, his performance as Oppenheimer was astounding. And it's interesting because if you've seen like his performance wise in Nolan films, he's usually in the sidelines. So like, in case y'all don't know or don't remember, Cillian Murphy played the Scarecrow in the Dark Knight trilogy. At least in Batman Begins, there was a little bit of a bigger role, as was the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, where it was like a cameo or two. Yeah, just to see him just step up. He was also in Inception and Dunkirk. And yeah, those were very small roles for him. So just seeing him like now taking a lead performance, and this is obviously not his first lead performance. He's done, I don't know if anyone out there is familiar with the film 28 Days Later.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent zombie film, by the way. And then also fans like me, I'm a huge fan of a show on Netflix called Peaky Blinders, where he played like the head of a British gang in the 1920s to 30s and 40s. It's an amazing show. He makes a great performance in that show.
Need to catch up on that.
It's a good show, man. It's not as risque as like a certain scene in this film that we will eventually talk about. Pretty much it starts off like with sound. The thing about Nolan films, and this has always been a critique on Nolan films, not by me, but to a lot of fans or to a lot of movie viewers, he likes to play with sound so many times, like he plays with sound towards like a character is talking, but you don't know what they're saying. I get the whole realism of like, well, that's how sound works. So I even asked you this a while back. It's like going into this on a scale of 1 to deaf, how much sound are we going to get out of this? And yeah, we went to full on deaf in an hour into that film.
It was crazy. Like
yeah.
not even 10 minutes or 5 minutes into the film, and you're already like on this edge of your seat or back towards your seat actually, because of how loud this whole screen was. I mean, it depends on what theater you're at. I went to Regal Cinemas just to see it with my brother in digital, and then afterwards I went by myself to see IMAX and 70 millimeter. Both theaters, regardless, they shook up the whole room. It was just crazy. Like there were times where I had to cover my ears because I knew coming in, like, okay, something's gonna go down and it's gonna be loud enough that I'm gonna get tendinitis.
Yeah. Speaking of 70 millimeter, this one of the reasons I love Nolan is because he sticks with traditional film versus what a lot of modern filmmakers do. But also, like, film is rare now. Actual film, guys. I'm talking about like the camera actually rolling film. It's rare nowadays. And I think it even costs a lot more than using a digital camera because of how old and antique it becomes. But that's why I like it. Yeah, but like it starts off with a few sounds. And I love that he starts off with talking about, because the quote from, I don't even know what book it is. We just know it's from the story of Prometheus. And if y'all don't know the story of Prometheus, it's about an alien ship. I'm just kidding. No, that's not where I'm going with. No, if y'all don't know the story. So basically Prometheus was a Titan.
I know, not Attack on Titan. I know a lot of people would probably confuse that even more.
Or a Teen Titan, but he was a Titan, like it would say more, was it like the gods before the gods or something like that?
Yeah, like kind of if you, not a demigod, but more like just related back to the old ancient Greece and like the whole myths about Athena, Zeus, Poseidon.
Yeah.
I mean, Prometheus was just around there. Like he wasn't top. He wasn't at the top, but he was like just around there.
Yeah. And like supposedly Prometheus had created man from himself out of clay. And Zeus had the fire from Olympus that had like knowledge and like stuff, how to live life. So seeing his creation not know how to understand anything, Prometheus took fire from Olympus and gave it to humanity. And out of punishment, Zeus had him tied to a rock, and a seagull would come every day to eat out his liver and to kill him. And then he would wake up the next day, his liver would be back, and then the seagull would come and do it all over again. So it actually makes sense because like when man was given fire, a whole mess of, pardon my French, but a whole mess of shit just happened out of that. That's pretty much where like it went with Oppenheimer. As soon as you introduce a weapon such as big as a bomb like that, everyone's going to want to get their hands on it, and it's going to even
Mhm.
get even worse and worse. So, yeah, again, keep in mind on what we're going to be on the ending as well. But it starts off with that quote, and then you just see like Oppenheimer, he's already like on trial for, again, supposedly being a communist. And then it goes back and forth. When he was in university, he's studying physics because that's his profession. And then you get into like the political side. So back then, if you were considered a communist, like you were considered not a good person because this was the time of the Red Scare, which was like after the Second World War. The Russia has been taking over most of that side of the hemisphere because now Germany's backed off and America is not now afraid of the communism that's rising from Russia, and it's made its way to the US. So he's being accused of being a communist, which supposedly his brother was a communist, or not an official, like he said he was an official member, but his sister-in-law was.
So
I don't even know what the actor's name is, but when you saw the brother, what was your reaction? Oppenheimer's brother. Because
you
it
mean
gives,
like as in the actor, or you just
yeah,
mean just the character?
the actor.
I'll be honest, I didn't recall who the actor playing his brother was.
Oh, so it was I forgot what his name was. It was Allison's boyfriend in the first two Halloween films, or in David Gordon Green's trilogy.
Really?
Yeah, I just remembered it instantly.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's another good thing about this film is that you're going to see a whole bunch of actors that you're like, wow, you have not seen them in a while.
I didn't recognize him, but I recognized every other actor that I saw on screen.
Yeah, yeah. So as I mentioned, like Oppenheimer was introduced to the Communist Party. He fell in love with a girl. Hold on, we got to get the names here because the girl's played by Florence Pugh. We all know as in like the new Black Widow,
Midsummer.
Midsummer. That's a freaky movie, by the way.
Dude, if you have not seen the director's cut, man, that's even freakier.
Oh yeah. So Gene Tedlock, that's like an actual person. Because normally, like most biographical films, they'll like make up someone or something just to keep the story interesting. So I actually had to look up, was this an actual love affair? It was. Like Oppenheimer was in love with this woman, and she was like 20 years younger than him at the time. But yeah, it's interesting. So, and like she supposedly was a communist, or she was a member of the Communist Party, but also through the Communist Party, Oppenheimer would eventually meet his actual future wife, Kitty Oppenheimer.
Pretty. Mhm.
Yeah. By the way, so we'll say, because I was going to talk about Emily Blunt's performance. It's good. It's just that we don't get too much of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because remember, I mean, as far as I can tell, this whole film acts as a biopic. It's like everyone thinks, okay, we're gonna see how the bomb is made, and then afterwards, a lot of people coming in, like before coming into this film, they were suggesting, okay, we're gonna actually see it drop on both Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I was like, no, you're not. This is only about how they made the bomb.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens to Oppenheimer afterwards. Like
Yeah.
it was never about, oh, we're gonna see World War II end.
Yeah, it's interesting. And like the sex scene, the first one shook everyone off guard because this was Christopher Nolan's like first sex scene in any of his films.
Yes, it's the first time where he visually shows it, like shows nudity,
Yeah.
at least. But like, I mean, if you count The Dark Knight Rises, where Bruce and Talia, they had their moment, but of course PG-13, they don't show any major.
The anatomy wasn't there, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that was also Florence Pugh's like first undressing scene ever. Yeah, it just caught everyone off guard. But yeah, it was an actual like love because I think she was also involved with somebody else. He had to like marry Kitty because he got her pregnant. So eventually, like him and Kitty get married, and then they move into, where is it, Berkeley, or I forgot where they moved. It was really because like Oppenheimer got a new job at a university.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry, it was Princeton University, so that was probably in like you said, Berkeley. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously he started off with just one student, which led to a whole bunch of more students. And all these students as well are commies because they support the Communist Party. Because this was during the time of the fascist Germany rising, and Oppenheimer himself was Jewish. And to them, like the Communist Party, it speaks to more of like, they wanted something that was anti-fascist.
Mm-hmm.
But people from both ends realized that like communism, and if you want to know my opinion, I am anti-communist. I'm also anti-fascist. But I don't know why people are trying to like bring both groups modernly, but it's just me. But it's like, the government is afraid of like all these young Tommy kids, especially taking over the university, especially Josh Hartnett's character, who's also like a little bit scared. And around this time now, we actually get forward to the Manhattan Project, which was starting figuring out how to make a bomb. And one character, he's Russian, or I forgot what his name was,
You mean
but
Talon?
Helen, before they even begin, he had to go over a few numbers. But before we even try, you need to look over it because I did the math, and they're all doubting it, like, no, this can't be possible. So Oppenheimer had to go to the number one genius at the time, Mr. Albert Einstein. Yeah. And they
Let me
said,
tell
like,
you, when that happened,
yeah,
when he showed up on screen, I was like, "Let's go, baby!" Like this felt to me, this felt like the Avengers level threat right
yeah.
there. It's amazing.
So now they have to figure out how we're gonna like make this like, because I guess you could owe it to Tesla, because if he had not run the numbers, who knows what, like Japan probably would never exist anymore, or they probably would have died trying to make a bomb.
See, here's the thing though. A little known fact for those who just watched the film and who realize, like you said, a lot of these characters are real people. Teller was very influential later on after the Los Alamos project. He was
Yeah.
very influential in the continuation of like the atomic race with the U.S. and the whole starting to make a lot of ICBM missiles. Specifically, he was really infatuated with the hydrogen bomb. Now, the hydrogen bomb later on would discover in real life that it is way worse than what they made at Trinity, or
Yeah.
sorry, the Trinity test. Again, I don't mean to cut off on what you're saying, but if I could add another thing to this,
Yeah, go ahead.
again, with being the science guy and all, if you notice every little bit, besides science being a major aspect of the film, it was embedded in every small detail that we take for granted, we don't even see. So, like, just like if I can go back to the beginning, you know how when Oppenheimer is just staring at the water and seeing puddles, seeing
Yeah.
little droplets, and then notice how as you see the montage as he's as he's understanding physics and how theory and all this stuff works. You see
Yeah.
that montage. You notice how sometimes he was in bed and he would see things like little white lines. They look
Mhm.
like static in the air.
Yeah.
That, just so you know, is him visually seeing how the atom looks. Those white lines were there for a reason because knowing Nolan tried to be as scientifically accurate as possible. The puddles were initially like when you see the little droplets and you see how like it makes a vibration sometimes. Like if it makes any sense, try to go back to Jurassic Park. You know how when Tim, when he's in the car on the
Yeah.
Jeep and he sees the water and it starts to make those little like rings, like if it was vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
That's similar to what we saw in the film. Every time there was a droplet of water on the ground, those little, every time you saw the rings or the vibrations, that was Oppenheimer's visual cue of what the atom looks like, or why he was so influenced by the scientists before him, like Einstein and Niels Bohr, which I know
Yeah.
we didn't talk about Niels Bohr, but Niels Bohr is responsible for helping the modern world discover or understand what the atom looks like. And
Yeah.
if you notice the rings on atom, if you go online look up what an atom looks like now, his original design had rings, like a big ring on the outside, and then a ring, a smaller ring, all the way to the center. Those droplets at the beginning of the film is Oppenheimer visually seeing the atom. And then when you notice the explosion the first
Mm-hmm.
time,
Yeah.
that's him visualizing what happens when you split the atom.
Yeah.
So just like I said, this movie really like I felt so in love with this movie because of how much science was just put into this film. Like to the point where I
Yeah.
was sitting here like I get a lot of people, maybe yourself, are probably confused at this point of what I'm saying, but just me seeing that on screen, I was like, I desperately want to show this to my kids,
Yeah.
even though it's rated R.
Yeah, I forgot it was rated R. Apparently this was his first rated R film since Insomnia, which I believe is the only Nolan film I have yet to see. So, and it's also the only Nolan film that had R.I.P. Robin Williams in it.
Yes.
Yes, but yeah, so he's recruited to the Manhattan Project by everyone. The one who leads it, I'm looking up his name right now. Leslie Gross, the guy who's in charge of it all.
Matt Damon, right?
Matt Damon, dude. I would say this was his second role in a Nolan film since Interstellar, which one of my favorites. But yo, the cast is just amazing in this film. And then we get like a whole set of cast. Like we get Randy Quaid, who's famous for The Boys. He also came out in Scream 5 last year. Yeah, he is in fact the son of Dennis Quaid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing actor. Josh Peck was the big kicker on that one. I mean, if you've seen Drake and Josh, if you grew up with Drake and Josh, you're like, okay, this is like quite a shift in his career. And
Imagine if he was saying like it's spherical.
it's
It's spherical.
yeah. Josh Hartnett, as I say, you don't see a lot from Josh Hartnett. That's another thing is that all these actors you have not seen in a while. Like who else is in?
I forget the name who plays him, but he's well known for Roderick in
Yeah,
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
That's who I'm actually looking for right now. I think it's like Devon something. Devon Boswick. Here you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason why there was even an interview where like people were talking about, that's the guy from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I think majority of this casting has to do with also Nolan's kids,
Mm-hmm.
because Nolan's kids are, I think, in their teens right now. When he casted Harry Styles for Dunkirk, he did not know who Harry Styles was, but it's because of his daughter would obviously listen to One Direction, so that's how he heard about Harry Styles. But yeah, it's such an amazing cast. But yeah, and David Krumholtz, who played Bernard in the Santa Claus films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That I didn't know. Like I watched the whole film. I went back home and I was reading reviews and people's reactions, and all I remember is somebody's like, "It's Bernard, Bernard." I'm like, "What?"
yeah. And then we'll talk about it now, but you didn't even know that Gary Oldman played Truman because of all that makeup that was onto him. And
Yeah, that too. I had no clue.
dude, I saw right through the makeup, but it's also because like when you see Darkest Hour, which was a film Gary Oldman won the Oscar for, at this point you can already see who Gary Oldman is. But yeah, such an amazing cast. So really, you just get this whole montage of like how they're like trying to create with the physics, the science behind trying to think all of how they're creating the bomb, how are they going to do it. You also get like, more students trying to figure out how to create this bomb. And then you're also going back and forth because this film shifts back and forth. It goes to the creating of the bomb, then back to the trial, which by the way, the trial gets like even more and more intense. And then also you get the subplot, like him and his wife are like having like doubts, which is why eventually he goes back to Tedlock and has another affair with her. That scene, yeah, there's nudity in that scene, but in the Middle East, it's covered in a black dress.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, it's like it gets so like deep into Oppenheimer. Like I didn't know too much about him, but yeah, by the way, y'all, I just came back from working at a summer camp. I'm tired as heck, but hey, it was worth it. In fact, everyone at my camp went to go see the film. That's why I said I got dragged into seeing Barbie. Somebody that I went with, he was wearing a Barbenheimer shirt, which I didn't even know existed at the time. But
Oh, by the way, if anybody's still doing that, and they haven't, like, if they're planning on watching the films, do yourself a favor and watch Oppenheimer first, because you don't want to get off of a film it's not made for kids. Neither film is made for kids. I know that
neither.
they've advertised so much that Barbie is basically for everybody, but it really isn't. But Barbie leaves you on a high note.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer doesn't. So
No.
watch Oppenheimer first.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of glad we're but I mean, I watched Oppenheimer from 8 to 12, yo. That, like I said, it's a long film. That's the thing I want to mention. It's not really about the movie. It's like you were telling me, and you were actually warning me the chances of seeing the Exorcist Believer trailer. I had to warn the people who I was seeing the movie with to be like, hey, my friend just told me there's a chance that the Exorcist trailer is going to be released. But I wasn't sitting in the same row with them, so I just wondered how their reaction was, because that was my first time actually watching the trailer. So I like didn't even go on YouTube because I actually wanted to be like surprised. I wish I watched the trailer first before I saw the film.
Here's the thing though, the trailer wasn't even out on YouTube.
Oh,
It was
really?
doing, like, for opening weekend, it was making its rounds privately just through the screenings online. So like to force people to go and watch a movie in theaters. And then after about a week or so, they went ahead and put it.
Yeah. Well, that was smart and now traumatizing. And then you watch Oppenheimer and it just leaves on a down note. But I mean, it's still a great film. Yeah, much of the plot, it is just going back and forth. But it's also like even like as I said, even in the courtroom scene, Jason Isaacs' character trying to bring down Oppenheimer, making all these like questions. And then eventually, as we can skip forward and say, like, eventually, like, we go to the part where Germany has now like surrendered, but we're still dealing with Japan. So they said, you know what, we're just going to start doing then we're going to have to test it on Japan, or we're going to have to drop it on Japan. And then the Trinity test, man, it gets you on the edge of your seat. Yeah. And then what was the secret code he said to his wife? Like, take down the sheets.
Take down the sheets.
Meaning, like, if it's successful, which it was. And then, man, and then the whole Los Alamos, like, the fact that they created a fake town for testing.
And
Like,
believe it or not, it's still a town. I mean, it's obviously more populated and it's been bigger over the years, but now it's like I think as far as I can tell, Los Alamos itself, the original town, it's kind of like I think left behind as a historical property, and people can
yeah,
go visit it as a museum, etc. But
yeah,
yeah, it's just crazy, like you said, like how it all been made into a whole city just to or a town just to make this thing happen.
yeah. And the other thing that's crazy is that like that, it was a Native American reserve,
Mm.
and after the whole thing, he was like, we're gonna tear down the town, give the natives back their land, and then the government's like, no, you know what, we're just gonna keep it open. So it's kind of messed up on their end, but
That's the thing, though. It's like
yeah,
I was hoping. I mean, again, Native Americans always get the butt end of, I guess, the joke.
sadly,
Of the sadly, and they were only mentioned twice in this film. If anything, they could have at least had some sort. That could probably be a movie. And no, I'm not counting. I mean, I'm not saying Killers of the Flower Moon is not going to be like the representation. I mean, like, could there have been a movie to come out soon that would show the reaction of this? Like at that time, they were
yeah,
taking their land, and now they were further taking their land and making them go to other places just
yeah.
to make this fake town.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just unfortunate, but he wanted to give the natives back their land. He wanted to just borrow it just so that they can test it out. And like I said, that the Trinity scene where they're just testing out the bomb again gets you on the edge of your seats, especially when it rains, because the slightest touch can set it off. And this is a bomb that has like a 30, 40 mile radius explosion. Like you don't want to get caught in that crossfire. And then like as soon as the bomb explodes, it's like 2 minutes of silence.
Mm.
And then it just gets loud because
You hear the
apparently,
after wave, like the aftershock wave. That's just, gosh.
yeah, when they were testing out like how the bomb is gonna be, there was a bit of a delay, like a 1 second delay, and then you hear it later on when they're like hiding behind like pieces of wood. But then, dude, that scene, I mean, like I remember you showing me. I don't know if it was you. We just saw a video of like Willem Dafoe from Here to Return It, or not from Here to Return It. I forgot what the movie's called, but he was playing Vincent Van Gogh, and like there's a scene where like he's just looking up into the heavens, and that's the thing called like, when you're in the front row of the IMAX theater and you're looking up and then that sound, like that's the part where we're saying like it's going to make you deaf. And then eventually the bombs were dropped and he thinks like this is a good win for America. But now in his mind, he's thinking, crap, now I also just killed millions
Millions
of,
of people.
yeah, like innocent people who weren't even involved. And then, Harry S. Truman's not very, he's saying like, no one's going to care about like those who suffered during the atomic bombing.
Actually, here's the
Yeah.
thing. I think the way you mentioned it, I think the interpretation was incorrect. If I remember correctly, he was only like the way this movie expressed him in a different way, like a
Mm.
negative way, and
Oh,
that's what
really?
it felt like. But really, he was letting Oppenheimer know that those innocent people aren't gonna give crap
Yeah.
about who made the bomb. All they care about is who launched it.
Mm.
So for a reason for him to say to get to in real life, he did do this. He did tell Oppenheimer, get out of my sight. Don't let him ever come back to my office again. Because I mean, if you look at it in his perspective, the real life Harry S. Truman must have lived with some severe regret until his death for
Yeah.
having to kill millions of people.
Yeah. And little to anyone's knowledge, except yours, obviously, the actual bombing is actually the actual inspiration for the birth of Godzilla, because the creator of the first Godzilla film wanted to show like this is the horror we suffered when the bombs were dropped. And like,
Shameless plug. I'll just let
yeah.
you know, just shameless plug right now. But speaking of to that, in this December, believe it or not, we're getting another Godzilla film from Japan,
Oh, really?
and it's basically the prequel to every film. As in, it's
Really?
the prequel to the original film. Not sure how they're gonna do this, but apparently it's basically Godzilla in post-war 1945. So right when the bomb hit Japan, he's gonna show up. And think about this: they're already dealing with having to
Mhm.
clean up and look for all their loved ones in all of this mess, and now they still have to go and hide themselves or protect themselves against a big kaiju.
Yeah.
So I actually can't wait to see what they do with this.
Yeah. Dude, I'm just like imagining like how Japan must have felt through all of this. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you think like it's supposed to end the war, but also, I guess in their term, lives must be lost for order for one side to win. One side has to suffer the consequences. There's got to be like some kind of theology there or something there. I was gonna say universalism, where it's like certain one life can be lost to save millions of others. That's like what their theology life is.
Hmm.
But we're going back to Oppenheimer's like trial because supposedly like plans and all that were in their cases leaked or given out on like the Soviets learning also how to make a bomb. You deal with
Hmm.
the aftermath of everyone else who was involved, like Teller and of course Leslie. They have to testify against Oppenheimer. They have to say like one of them answer, would you hire Oppenheimer today, now knowing like what the consequences were? There's this like it's interesting how like people are trying to turn against him, even though like deep down they know like if it wasn't for him, like the war would not have been won. Yeah, this is where like you get Robert Downey Jr. Even you get his bigger performance in this film. Like he's getting every scene that he was in. It's like he surprises me more and more. Yeah, and then now there's this one scene where now like they're asking his wife questions. This is the only scene where Emily Blunt actually shines through because like in the past, like her character Kitty Oppenheimer has just been in the back seat the entire time. This is where her character shines, or like she's turned every time Jason Isaac's character asks her a question, she turns the tables back on them. Asking about like, didn't you used to join the Communist Party? Why did you? You know what I mean? Like she's trying to like make her turn against Oppenheimer, even though at that time, like she's kind of like, she kind of scolds at him because of the whole, affair thing that happened. But
But
yeah,
also not that, but also I
yeah,
mean not only that, but also the stress. Like
yeah,
just that small tidbit of when he comes home and you see Katie is like or he asks, have you seen our son yet? And he's like, I've been with him all effing day.
yeah,
So it's the fact that yes, it's a small little tidbit people don't realize, but that the real life women of all these scientists that left hours and hours and hours a day to work on this thing, that the women don't get enough credit, that they had to pick up the work that we would have done. Like they had to not only just take care of their sons or their sons and daughters, they had to also feed them when they came home,
yeah,
clean up their workspace, clean their clothes and everything else. So the women just as much have an important role in this film, and that little small nugget, little details that you see in there, that really shines. Like
yeah,
yes, obviously her shining moment was when she's being interviewed by Roger Robb, and it's awesome.
yeah. It is, and we eventually also come to the conclusion that everything's just been set up by Strauss because apparently Oppenheimer humiliated him in a meeting. And like again, as I said, he felt like he was turning all the scientists against him, starting with Einstein, because we never mentioned, but like he sees Oppenheimer and Einstein talking, and then like Strauss is like, hey, Albert, and Albert Einstein doesn't say anything to him, which we'll eventually get to like the whole real reason why. But yeah, he's just trying to like turn against him, and even his lawyer starts to realize you are setting all of this up, just to make yourself look good. And I don't know if entirely that was true or if that's just Nolan being Nolan, because if y'all know Nolan, he likes to put twists and turns into all of his films.
One thing I can tell you that was not true, or at least is implied to, or it actually isn't true for sure. When at the beginning of the film, when he's attempting to murder his tutor
Oh
with
yeah.
the cyanide, potassium cyanide into the green apple. Well, see, the person he looks up to, Niels Bohr, comes in to visit the tutor and talk to Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And he has the apple in his hand. He's about to eat it. While that one scene about the whole idea that he was going to attempt to murder his teacher
Mm,
was in the book that the film is based off of,
yeah.
Niels Bohr never actually came to visit him in at that moment in time and
Oh
have the
wow.
apple on him. That was just something, like you said, that Nolan likes to keep twisting and turning to keep
Mhm.
us, the audience, at the edge of our seat because you think, "Ooh, something's gonna happen." But that's like that's one of those examples.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just because like when I saw that, I was like, either that's a Nolan thing or Strauss was just the biggest jerk that ever lived on the face of the earth. And then like he thought he won. He thought like, oh, you know what? I got this in the bag because supposedly like the jury was kind of now like, what was this? If I can remember the verdict, they
Which one?
recognize.
The one for Oppenheimer or for
Yeah.
Strauss?
Well, first for Oppenheimer, they recognize him as an actual like natural born citizen who did good for his country. However, they revoked his
Yes,
or
his security clearance.
yeah, that's what I was looking for, his security clearance. And then Strauss thought he had it in the bag. Little did he realize Rami Malek's character. By the way, just seeing Rami Malek in this film is already good enough.
Yes.
I know I'm gonna say you got Iron Man and Freddie Mercury in this film,
Oh, and
but
let's not forget that name drop. Man, the fact that JFK basically was the sole
yeah,
reason that he never got the seat.
yeah, because this whole time, like Strauss was like wanted to have his new seat in, and what was it? It was the Secretary of Commerce, and Hill, Rami Malek's character, his character is like one of those people. So if you ever go to like a courtroom or stuff like that, there are people who like will record like things that are happening word for word, and because he's good at his job, he's able to testify against Strauss, which is again like super amazing. So yeah, I guess he got what was coming to him, but like that last like 15 minutes of Robert Downey Jr. just shines and shines more. Like he's like very angry. He's like, he's trying to turn him against me, all that. So I was like, dude, where was all this talent? Oh wait, I forgot Marvel. Not to offend anyone from Marvel. I like the Marvel films, not the recent ones because they lack quality, if you will. Because Robert Downey Jr. has been with Marvel since 2008. You never saw him much in other films because all people will see is Iron Man. So seeing Downey Jr., especially again the last like 10, 15 minutes of this film, you forget Iron Man. Like I forgot Iron Man. I didn't see Iron Man. All I just saw was Strauss. And it's interesting because like you and I looked into this as well. One of the inspirations for this film that Christopher Nolan got was a film called Amadeus, which is
Yes.
I've never seen Amadeus before, but I know about the story. So Amadeus had his own rival at the time. I forgot what his rival's name was.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, but like the interaction between Amadeus and his rival was more about his rival than it was about like Amadeus himself, even though the film is called Amadeus. But like that character, like that characteristics between those two, he wanted to express that between Strauss and Oppenheimer. And then now we finally get to the end where like he talks about like what have we done as humans? Like, have I given man this whole thing? I'm gonna look up the script if it's still out.
It should be. If you read the books, the actual book that came out is basically the screenplay.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna read what it says right here. Or like he believes that they started like a whole, reaction that could destroy the world. Yeah. And that's why Albert Einstein was, mopey a bit when he passed by Strauss. Why he didn't say out of Strauss, because he believes that they probably did start a chain reaction that could end the entire world.
It's
And
also that like it's also the fact that he knew it was gonna happen, and now for him to get confirmation, because it just so the little tidbit that some people it must have overlooked some people in the when they're watching the film. In real life, Albert Einstein could also be, I mean, quote unquote, blamed for the creation of the bomb, even though he had no direct involvement. He did send a letter to Roosevelt expressing his fear that Germany was going to create one anyway, which is why he was telling Roosevelt, let's start making our own, or let's start researching, because it seems like Germany's about to make one and they're going to have the upper hand in the war.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that he got the confirmation from Oppenheimer with his belief saying, yes, it seems like we've started this chain reaction. And with that, I mean, that would explain his mopey attitude at the end. Because he knew. He was like, well.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, the way it ends, you just know, like, and like, unlike most biographical films, this one doesn't say like, oh, well, now Oppenheimer lived to be whatever, whatever. Well, first of all, there's going to be a lot of details because there's so many people that was involved with the Atom Project. The film's already 3 hours enough. It could take like another 10 minutes just to talk about every single person involved in the film. You know what I mean? I think is good because now it's up to us to think like, well, what happened to everyone else? That now requires us to actually go online and do research ourselves.
A small tidbit that I still love about like towards the end of the film. Some people probably didn't recognize this unless you stayed after the credits and noticed the cast. When Albert was still talking to him about that, like you can see, like I guess there's a time gap. It just advances, and you can see Oppenheimer is a little bit older, his wife's older, and stuff like that. LBJ at that point was the president, and he's the one giving him the medal or whatever, and stuff like the appreciation. And that one scene when Teller comes up to him,
Oh,
shakes
I
his
know what you're
hand,
talking about. Yeah.
and then he offers the same handshake to Kitty, and Kitty's like, "Nope, that is based on a real photograph that really happened.
Yeah,
The
because
interaction happened, and Kitty was like, I'm never shaking this man's hand."
yeah, no, it's because like when she heard like because like as we mentioned before, Taylor spoke out against Oppenheimer. Like it's not like he wanted to; it's just more like he just had to. But
Mm.
and like Taylor saying like I'm sorry, like I tried, and Oppenheimer knew like he didn't mean to turn against him, so that's why they shook hands. Because they still honor each other like from what they worked with. So, but Teddy says I would have just spit in his eye, and you could tell like she was about to foam one in her mouth. Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty much the abridged plot breakdown, but there's more I want to talk about. So I'm going to take a break right now. All right, and welcome back to Gilbert's All About the Media podcast. Normally, we could have like multiple breaks within these episodes, but I think we're just gonna keep it one break. Reason being is because like I just didn't want to cut off like talking about. I don't want to go like plot, one part of the plot, take a break, then let's continue talking about the plot, taking a break. So it's really just we're just gonna do one break for this episode, but I just wanted to devote half of it to plot wise, and then other half to technical aspects of this film because there's a lot of them. I mean, first of all, Nolan wrote, directed, and produced this film. I actually didn't know this was based off a book either. So, because like normally Nolan writes his own material, so this is like something new for me. Because even I can say that the Dark Knight trilogy, yes, that's based off like the Batman comics, obviously, but it's still technically like his own original material because he writes the Batman, the Joker differently than how the comics are supposed to portray them. But I mean, what were your thoughts on like some of the technical aspects of this film? Like if you can think of one off the top of your head.
Well, to add on to what you said, watching the film, as soon as it was over and the credits roll, and it says it's based on American Prometheus, I'm like, hold up, this is based on a book. So it was crazy to know that was like one of the first times seeing that, like that it's adapted rather than him. And it
Yeah.
used to be his brother. His brother and him used to be the duo that would write all
Oh, I
their
forgot
stories.
about that. Yeah.
But yeah, it was the first time. I guess it's the first time he hasn't
I think they
in a
haven't
while.
I think they haven't wrote together. I would say since Dunkirk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they normally do write like stuff together because you can't even say like because even Memento was based off something his brother wrote, so technically it still counts as like own material. But yeah, sound wise, as we mentioned, like sound is like again something he likes to play with. But I only give this film the benefit of the doubt because like I understand like this is how sound's supposed to be in IRL in real life, like the whole shock wave of like when the bomb exploded, like caught everyone off guard.
Even the small things, like the small little explosions, the tests they made. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's real. Like if you and I were 20 feet away and decided to blow something up, we wouldn't hear the immediate impact. We would have to
Yeah.
hear it a couple of feet away. And
Yeah.
that's what I like about it, the whole scientific accuracy that he can put into these films. But also the filming, like when we talk about technical aspect,
Yeah.
fission and fusion. At the beginning, we have the numbers. We have a number and it tells you fusion. Oh, sorry. First one's fission and the second would be fusion. But if you notice, that was telling the audience how to view the film and why there's a reason why there a lot of frames were in color. At least the
Yeah.
majority of it was, and then some frames were in black and white. Black and white is referring to present day in the 50s, while everything in color is simply a flashback, which is the
Yeah.
reverse of how Nolan made story-wise the flashbacks and memory occurring present time scenes in
Yeah.
Memento. Everything in Memento was black and white, was a flashback, whereas everything in color was at that moment.
Yeah. And the thing about Christopher Nolan, he always makes things like non-linear. I'm trying to think of like the definition of the term non-linear versus linear writing. Or like, so let's put it this way. If you've seen Dunkirk, you know that like time works differently within that film because there's a story that's in the sky, the story that's on the land, and story that's in the water. They all like cohesively come together, but like it's different, if you know what I mean. Like there's this own little story within. Hold on, let me just look up an actual good definition because I'm butchering it so bad. And
I
I
mean,
think,
we could always say the pieces are interconnected,
yeah,
but they don't have necessarily be in chronological order.
I would say, yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Like Pulp Fiction. A lot of people
Yes, I
have
was thinking
seen
of Pulp
Pulp Fiction.
Fiction.
So
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction is non-linear.
But let's put it this way, it's not in chronological order. That's a simple way to say it. Because if you see Memento, things go back and forth. And if you've ever seen Memento, technically things are just going backwards because,
In reverse.
yeah, it's a pretty interesting storyline. Yeah, like he has a unique way of like writing his scripts. But, and then like, obviously, I got to give props to Ludwig Grossman, the guy who created the score to this film.
Oh yeah.
Dude. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if, I think you might have mentioned it, but
Okay,
you're,
I'll say this much. Tenet, after viewing them separately, at least in terms of just watching it in film and then hearing it online, just the soundtrack, I don't know what's better for me. I think I prefer Tenet
mm,
when I hear it separately and then when I hear Oppenheimer, because there's a couple of tracks that,
yeah.
yes, I think just hearing them by themselves is fantastic, but like most of the tracks in that film or in for that film, I prefer to hear them while I watch the movie.
Okay.
Whereas in Tenet, every piece of the soundtrack was just dang, I can listen to it when I'm on the road.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I mean, the thing about Tenet for me, and I don't hate Tenet, but it's definitely not the top ranking for, in my opinion, like the top ranking of his films. The thing with Tenet is that like the soundtrack kind of like overplays too much. Like I think, like in my opinion, I thought it overplayed too much than Hans Zimmer scores in Interstellar. And Interstellar was pretty loud. Like you barely heard Matthew McConaughey at certain points. Yeah, as again, he's always messing with sound. You even get the sound of like the fire that's forming. You get the sound of electricity. And it's not like like that staticky sound you hear. Like it sounds so different. Like it's like supposed to be how accurate, because you were talking about molecules and all that earlier. So
Mhm.
that's what I find interesting. And as I said, Grossman's score, he has a very I was gonna say like Grossman to me is like someone who likes to carry on, people's work, because he's carrying on like the Star Wars saga now because he's been doing the scores for The Mandalorian and, the Book of Boba
Mhm.
Fett and a lot of other Star Wars stuff too. Because John Williams, I think, is he already retired yet, or is he like coming close to it?
He's coming close to it. He said a while
Yeah,
back that yeah, what is it? He said a while back that Indiana Jones was his last film, but nah.
yeah, but like,
He changed his mind. He'll still be making a couple more until
yeah, so like he's carrying on
whenever he
like,
decides.
but he's like carrying on like John Williams' work, and I think he's doing it perfectly. And now, in case y'all don't know this, Hans Zimmer was Nolan's like normal person to do scoring, like how Steven Spielberg was to John Williams. But like Hans Zimmer didn't do the track to Tenet, it was Ludwig Grossman, and now, Ludwig Grossman now has come back for Oppenheimer. Again, score was amazing. It did feel like as if Hans Zimmer did write the music to this. So again, I love Hans Zimmer scores, The Lion King, Interstellar. He's done a lot. All right, as I mentioned, I forgot to mention this. If you know anything about Nolan and special effects, no CGI is ever used at all. Like none. Everything is all practical, and he goes to the limits on like creating very good special effects. I mean, because the hospital scene in The Dark Knight, it wasn't a CGI hospital or display set of a hospital. It was an actual building they blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like
Black hole. The black hole was, regardless of what they claim it to be. If you watch the behind the scenes in Interstellar and how they made the stuff, how they
yeah,
were able to figure it out, sure, some of that stuff obviously had to be CGI'd. I mean, they couldn't just completely find a whole ice planet, or
mm,
they couldn't travel to space and do all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is the black hole. Whether that had been maybe a bit of CGI, they had a black background. And all they
yeah,
had to do was use a globe,
hmm,
paint it, and spread it out to where it looked like, yes, it's a rotating thing and it's moving. So all those things go back from the 70s. And I mean, here we are with Nolan and his technical aspect that he's using film, which is
yeah,
a dying media. He's going back to the elements, going back to how things were made back then.
yeah, dude. It's amazing because like Tenon is all more of a, like editing rather than using CGI.
Mm-hmm.
And even like just a whole stunt team. Because as far as I can tell you, I like most of his films have won like the special effects category, like Inception, Tenet, Interstellar one. So yeah, I think Dunkirk brief. So like Dunkirk did actually have some like green screen effects, but it wasn't like it's not like Marvel where like 90% of their filmmaking, or
Exactly.
not even Marvel, really Disney. It's like 90% of their filmmaking is all green
Computer
screen.
generated. It's like,
Yeah,
look, I have nothing against CGI. That's the thing. CGI is very important. It's the reason why we have fantastic films like Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, if you use it right. And
yeah,
those films and Nolan know how to use CGI as
yeah.
much as they need to. They don't overdo it like you mentioned how Disney overdoes it.
Here's the thing though, is that like stats, props, and like camera tricks, believe it or not, that's cheaper than using CGI. Because you
Hmm.
get when 90% of your film is CGI and not set, you have to understand this because I'm a film major. You don't even really have to be a film major to know this, but special effects artists like who use like computer and all that, yes, there's millions of them, but you gotta understand they're being paid by the hour. So the
Hmm.
longer they're like sitting in a room putting in the details of CGI, the more money you have to pay them. So like they don't cost cheap, like it's not like a $10 an hour job. It's not a $10 an hour gig for them. No, this is like $200 an hour gig for these people. And they can spend like 1,000 hours at an editing booth. So understand like
Shout out to the Spider Verse artists.
yeah. So like understand like you're paying a lot just for people who are, sitting in a desk doing like details on a computer. And I'm not saying like that's not important or anything. I've done that before. I know the struggle, but if you like to keep things real and you like to like save a couple of bucks, Seth is where to go because it really construction. And I think this is something that should be a new strike. Construction workers on films don't really get that much appreciation,
Hmm.
which is to me like as a film major, that's where I really want to go because I mean these are like unsung heroes, and if we're continuing to use CGI, they're going to be out of a job because there's a difference between creating a set for a film and just being a construction worker in general. Like they're helping you build the mind you have. So this is why I appreciate Nolan for what he does in his special effects. I mean, have you seen what they did with Inception with the hotel scene?
Dude,
It's
that is just like how
Yeah,
like
it's
how.
insane. It's insane, yo. That's why I say like you got to give them Disney at least like cut back all the CGI. I was gonna say while you're at it, cut back all the remakes too.
And here's the thing, it's real. It's
Yes.
real. You feel the realism in this. Like,
Hmm.
no, I didn't watch Oppenheimer and then get to the Trinity scene and think that was fake. That's real.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it, but that's just crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing, yo. As we said, like acting was really good from everyone. Storyline was good. Editing was actually pretty decent. There's some moments where I'm like, it's kind of overplaying too much, but other than that, it was pretty good. Cinematography wise, oh man, 70 millimeter, dude. Hoyt von
Oh
Hoyt.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
And if y'all don't know this, he actually worked on Nope last year with
Yeah, yes.
yeah,
Jordan
so
Peele, man.
this guy the worst part is this guy has yet to be nominated for an Academy Award. So or
This
and
has to
maybe
be the film. Just
yeah,
wait. This will be the film. But look, notice the trend. I don't know if you notice this trend right now that's happened, and it's probably happened for years. Most films that are about Americana or anything that may have any little ounce of propaganda of this country we live in is automatically placed in a nomination category at the Oscars. It doesn't matter
yeah.
what nomination it's for, as long as it has anything to do with the patriotism of the country,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna get nominated. It's something.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is the film.
Because like
That
last
he gets his dessert.
yeah, because last year people were hoping like I don't know, I actually do not know why, but people were hoping he would get nominated for Nope, which is out of color for the Academy because of like the type of film Nope was.
Hmm.
Because like if y'all don't know, the Academy doesn't really like they don't really honor like big old sci-fi horror films as Nope was.
Yeah.
But I was surprised that he wasn't nominated for Interstellar, which was the first film that he worked for Nolan with. So that's where it's like, okay, so here I think he was nominated for Dunkirk, and I think that was the only film he was nominated for. So if he does get nominated, then I actually do hope he wins because that's amazing cinematography there. Continuing to use actual film. Yeah, and Oscar chances, I think here's my problem is that when it comes to the Academy, they tend to screw over Nolan a lot, like with The Dark
Yeah.
Knight. with The Dark Knight and then with Inception. I wish they gave more respect to Interstellar. Dunkirk was the first film he was nominated for Best Director. He's been nominated in the past for different categories, but never in the directing category. So I literally hope they don't do that again this next year. But if he does, honestly, so far as I could tell you, I think he might actually have it in the bag. It's literally between him and I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon hasn't really been out yet. The only ones who've seen the films are like people who were able to see, what's the word I'm looking for, like screenings?
Early screenings.
Early screenings, yeah. People who've seen early screenings are already giving their reviews about it. So far, most people are saying it's actually between Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon, but it's either or at this point. But yeah, obviously, director, I think he does have it in the bag. But if it gets screwed over, I'm like gonna be pissed, like extremely. Yeah,
Just wait for him to make the inevitable JFK biopic.
yeah, but yeah. Robert Downey Jr. Obviously, he's got in the bag too. People are literally saying, like, people who saw the early screenings of Killers of the Flower Moon think like it could be De Niro, but they think like Robert Downey Jr. might actually could still beat out De Niro.
Or even who is it? See, here's the thing. At this point, if Cillian Murphy gets nominated, it'll be between him and Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's an interesting nomination duel. Because it's funny because third in line, so actual second in line, back to the whole Barbenheimer thing, Ryan Gosling is considered also for a nomination. It's just pretty weird, but I mean, it's not my position, so I at least hope that Oppenheimer isn't that film that goes home empty-handed, which I highly doubt because like how much work is put into this film.
And American propaganda. I mean, it's pretty obvious. America just loves their patriotism.
Yeah. I mean, if you've seen Top Gun, that's pretty much where it was at. I think the last time an actual like American film has won big was Saving Private Ryan. Yeah, because it won Best Director and didn't win Best Picture. It lost to the pervert, Harvey Weinstein's Shakespeare in Love. Yeah, so I think that's the last time like a true patriotic film has actually won big. And it's interesting because like Nolan sounds British, but he's actually American. It's weird to say this. So you'll hear Nolan, he'll sound British, but you hear Jonathan Nolan, he actually sounds American. It's because they both hold both American and British citizenship. Yeah, so he owes it to both American and British filmmaking. But yeah, I hope he at least get a win for something. Like I wanted to take Best Picture. That's like my big hope because I was gonna say I hope it wins Best Picture because that's like so far I think that's the only film like Everything Everywhere All at Once just won Best Picture. I don't think any other film was gonna top that until I saw Oppenheimer. So maybe there's a chance. Or Killers, but I haven't seen Killers isn't out yet. So
and that is another 3-hour film. So get ready for that one.
Actually, it's a 30 minutes over 3 hours. So yeah. If you have an Apple TV, it's easy for y'all to pause that. If you don't, you gotta see it at a theater, then don't order any drinks or anything.
This is the way it was meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I hope it does.
I bought popcorn and drinks for Oppenheimer, and I was able to. I mean, if you know how to take yourself adequately, you know how to conserve the hunger you have when what's in front of you, you're fine. So even if we go see Killers, still gonna have it with me. Just not gonna eat much.
No, here's the thing though, is that like, but I was saying like when I saw Barbie, I had to use the restroom after the first act. Like, I don't know why, but when I saw Oppenheimer, nothing. But I mean, yeah, I think that's all I have for today. As for where I rank this film amongst Nolan's films, I would say like, and it's difficult because like I love a lot of Nolan's films. So when a new film comes out, it could knock one of the top films, in my opinion, like out of their place and take their place. So for me, I would say Oppenheimer might be top 5, maybe close to top 3. Because right now, top 3 is always Dark Knight, The Prestige, and Interstellar. So I don't know which one it can knock off, but so far it's a Dark Knight, Interstellar, Prestige, now Oppenheimer, Dunkirk. Actually, no, The Dark Knight Rises.
Dang, okay, that is surprising. So I think That's around my list as well. I would switch. Okay, just be me as a science guy. I would
Yeah,
switch. I would switch the Prestige with Oppenheimer with this film. It's still like I said, The Dark Knight is still top one,
yeah,
and then it's followed by confusing for me. It's either Interstellar or Oppenheimer as two or three. They
yeah,
I switch every now and then with them. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Because it's pretty hard because like unlike Tarantino films, you could still watch it and some could still take their place. Like I would say most people wouldn't even consider Pulp Fiction their top one Quentin Tarantino film.
I still think top one for me is between Kill Bill and Jackie Brown. I guarantee you, people, at least the new generation who hasn't been introduced to these films, they don't even know who Jackie Brown is because
No.
it's unfortunately like the least watched in his lineup,
Yeah.
and it's not his fault. It's also the blame for distribution because I mean Miramax or whoever is in charge of distributing his films doesn't distribute that film.
But yeah, I mean, like with most great filmmakers, like you could say like this is my number one or number, but then when they come up with the new stuff and Hollywood can still make new stuff. It's just that, as I said, like Disney tends to like, rely on their remakes. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of some of their recent choices in their remakes because I do want to have a separate episode about that because there's a lot to talk about on some of their remakes, by the way.
Yeah.
But filmmakers, when they come up with something new, it's easy to like, their rankings of the film. That's Nolan. Spielberg used to be like that, but other than The Fableman, some of his other films have not been like too memorable.
Yeah.
Not like Jaws or Jurassic Park or E.T. But I mean, they're still good though. It's just that like if you think of Spielberg's, you're not gonna think of the BFG or Amistad. You know what I mean?
No, and it's not even like it's just weird. Like I don't know what it is now with him. A lot of the films that he's created or he's basically directed, I don't go see them for some reason. Like I saw The Fableman,
Yeah.
but when that one time I went to go watch Ready Player One,
Hmm.
but ever since then I don't watch them anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't entice me to go own it or to go
Yeah.
just purchase it and watch it again.
Yeah.
I don't have that anymore. All I do is go back to his old films. I'll just watch those.
Yeah. By the way, y'all, if when Oppenheimer comes out on digital or even DVD, I'm gonna buy some Bose speakers. All right. I want to have that same effect every time I watch it to have that like that big old aftershock just hit you. Because I mean, that's literally a film worth watching in IMAX. Because what was I
I
gonna
mean, it
say?
was made for IMAX.
Yeah.
Like it was made for IMAX.
Yeah, because like you and I, when we first saw Interstellar, we never saw it in IMAX because like we're seeing with a whole bunch of other groups. And
I
I
regret
wish,
it to this day.
yeah, me too, man. And just imagine how like the visuals look when it's in IMAX. It's amazing. Yeah, man. I really recommend this film. Like it just gives you a whole perspective on like being a human and like understand, what it means to like have human emotions or like what to think. Because like I'm in the process of writing a script right now. It's for one of my classes, and the idea is that like we're all human. We all make mistakes, but no one ever like actually studies that saying. As soon as like someone does something, people forget that saying. And it's interesting because I never heard of J. Robert Oppenheimer until I would say 2019 or 2020. So how I was introduced to J. Robert Oppenheimer was I don't know if you guys were ever familiar with a YouTube series. I don't know if they're still making videos now. It's called The Epic Rap Battles of History.
Oh yeah.
But there's an episode with J. Robert Oppenheimer and Thanos because both created dust out of humans. So that's how I've heard of J. Robert Oppenheimer. I understand once he creates something that humanity's introduced to, so much can come out of it, whether it's good or for bad. I mean, I love this film. Any final thoughts, Jesus?
It's like again, just in summary, if you love science, you love film, you love the way they do this, it's like the best. It's a one on one. It's a done deal. You should
Yeah.
watch this film.
Anyway, that's today's episode. Again, Jesus, always glad to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we got to get more people involved in this. But yeah, you guys are amazing, y'all. By the way, I'm still editing one episode because, again, I worked at a summer camp all summer, so don't get downtime to myself that much. And when I do, that's the time for me to relax. But anyway, if you're listening to this morning, good night, afternoon, just be safe, y'all. All right, God loves you all. You have a nice day.
You have a nice one.